what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Orangebloods Modcast. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Anwar Richardson, Jason Sukumel today. No Alex Dunlap. He's at the Combine, measuring hands and eating. Well, I guess you're not in Indianapolis, so he's not doing the shrimp cocktail thing that he loves so much. But good to be with everybody. Do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for coming into the chat. Get your notifications if you don't already have them.
Wait a second, are you saying that it's the Combine's not an Indy?
Don't they move the Combine? No, it's the draft that they move.
Yeah, so the Combine's in Indy. He's going to be at St. Elmo's this week.
Okay, you know what? That tells you how little draft Combine stuff I've watched so far early in the week. You're right. It's the draft that I remember reading. They're going to move the Combine, though, that they've talked about moving that around as well because there are dollars to make if you do those types of things. Again, welcome. This video brought to you by the guys over at DeadSoxy. You can still take advantage of that big winter sale. Go to DeadSoxy.com. Get 50% off bundles, 50% off single pairs. You just have to use that promo code Orangebloods. Trust me, I'm not a big sock guy. Like at some point, you just have to get your socks and wear them and not talk about them. But DeadSoxy socks are good enough to actually talk about. We all love them. Jason loves them. Alex loves them. Anwar loves them. I love them. Check them out. Trust me, it'll be worth your time. Fellas, we are now 6 days away from the start of spring drills. Jason, Anwar and I did like 90 minutes yesterday talking a lot about spring football and a lot of elements of the running game and things like that. We kind of wanted to focus on players. So if I let you pick the first player that we talk about today from this is a guy that you can't wait to watch or track, right? Because we won't get to watch a lot, but we'll hear about practices and guys that have stood out or haven't stood out. Is there a guy that, besides the obvious, right? I mean, we all can pick quarterback. And if Anwar wants to go right to quarterback when I toss it to him, he can. But, I've got a guy in my head, like instinctively right away. What about you?
Yeah, quarterback's too easy. I mean, we could all say Arch, right? I'm curious to see someone in the chat mention Malik Murphy. Anwar wrote about him on Sunday. I'm curious to see Malik Murphy. We'll get to the quarterbacks. I know.
Quinn Ewers too. Like I'm telling you, I want to see Quinn.
Interestingly, you're right, but I'm more interested to see the backups, I think, and how the jockeying for position there. But if I'm picking one guy catch, I'm going to cheat a little bit and say maybe one specific position. It's probably A.D. Mitchell, just to see how he comes in and performs. And I want to combine that a little bit and cheat a little bit with Isaiah Nayor and how healthy he's going to be. And is he going to be able to push A.D. Mitchell, or is it a designated 1 and 2 spot on that depth chart? Are they going to find a way to get both of those guys heavily involved? I want to see what Nayor's status is coming off the knee injury last year. Is he back? Is he close to being back? Are they going to bring him along super slowly? But I think A.D. Mitchell, his addition to that offense, his much needed addition to that passing game, I want to see, and like you said, probably hear more than see, but just how he's doing. How's he matching up against these defensive backs? Does the offense look any differently with him out there? And just what kind of production is he having on a day-to-day basis?
Anwar, we're not going to see a lot of Isaiah Nayor, right? I was trying to count it in my head. I don't know when he would have had surgery. We know he had the injury in mid-August. It was like August 13th or something like that. So he's 6 months and some change removed from that ACL injury. He'll participate on some level, right? But I think the expectations would be that expect to see more of him in August and not quite March. Is that fair?
As far as AD is concerned, or you said
no? Nayor? As far as Isaiah Nayor coming off of the ACL.
Yeah. I think he's still not at 100% at this moment.
Probably not. But you see these workout videos, and boy, he sure doesn't. I haven't seen one in a while, but he doesn't seem limited. But you're right. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to take any chances. But forcing him out there. Certainly not in 100% capacity. But I got to think he'll be out there running some routes and things. But
some non-contact stuff maybe, but like
maybe one-on-one type stuff even. But I guess we'll find out in a week, right?
Anwar, what about you? I mean, the draft board for individual players is wide open. Give me one.
I'm gonna go totally sideways with mine. I want to see Ethan Burke. I want to see what that looks like on the edge. And Alex is written about him. But when we talk about Burke or and who's going to be at that edge position, he's a guy that is obviously going to be in the mix. I wish I wish Alex was here to throw some scuds at Ovia Gofu, but he's not. So, but Burke will be the guy when I start thinking about because
it's Ray Thornton sitting at home on board, just eating some Cheetos and like working at home from his computer or something like that. When he starts getting the text messages, man, they're talking about you over at Orangebloods.
Every Tuesday, Ray Thornton is getting a message around 1:00 or so when the show wraps up for one of his boys. Like, man, you're not going to believe it. He's like, stop texting me. Like, Ray Thornton, he's out. He wants to get outside of this group text or whatever.
Alex better hope he never meets up with like Ray Thornton in a dark alley. Alex might be in trouble.
Like, Jason and I, or one of us, and we would just be walking, minding our business at the domain or something, and someone's just going to beat the shit out of us, and it's going to be Ray
It wasn't us.
But I'm gonna Ethan Burke. Put me down for Ethan Burke as far as the guy that I want to see.
Anwar, what's interesting with him is that I think he played 39 snaps last year, but by Alex's measures was creating disruption or production rather at like every 3.5 plays, 3 plays. Like, he's playing garbage time football. It's a small sample size, but it's a lot better than the opposite, right? I mean, we're talking about Ray Thornton. The reason why he always brings up Ray is I think Ray averaged production once every 50 snaps. Mm-hmm. This guy's at 3. So you'd rather it be that than like one every 17 snaps. In limited time, he's performed like a big-time guy. They need him to. That edge position is an area of the team that fans want to pretend is taken care of. And it's not. I mean, Ovia Gofu was an okay player last year, but that's an area where if we're just having a conversation amongst all of us, we would say that's an upgrade that eventually needs to be made. It's too important of a role to just be okay at. And the fact that Ovia Gofu's not headed to the NFL, that he's not in Indianapolis right now is kind of an indication that they weren't getting enough out of that position. If it's not your guy, Ethan Burke, then it's a bunch of other young guys that we start to talk about. Can they fill that role? And then if nobody's ready, because a lot of the guys that we're talking about are second-year players, and maybe they're just not ready, that it takes a little bit of time. Does that influence their planning with the portal in May? Is there an A.D. Mitchell out there at that position? They're harder to find, but like if you felt like you were in trouble, they have the means potentially to shake that up a little bit. So I'm with you. Like Ethan Burke is probably in my top 5 of if I was going to practice every day, I would be watching him really closely, at least for 15 minutes a day.
Yeah, because if it's not him catch, it could be Jamon Tapp, as a response, put potential there. So and then Sarkisian has talked up Tapp, I think he's towards the latter part of last season. I think he said, I can't remember specifically what he said, but I do remember him talking him up. So it will be interesting because they will be young, at that position. They will be throwing in some unproven guys, that get thrown in the fire in week 2. Like that will occur. And so so again, if we're gonna go away from the obvious and not talk about QB, then those give me Burke, and then of course Tap as well. Alex Alex has got like old man maintenance worker strength, where I think I wouldn't sleep on Alex as far. I mean, that guy is out there chopping wood.
Yeah, man.
Like,
that doesn't remind me of the conversation. He's still an average human being, and these other guys just finished being major college athletes. They too may also have some strength. Jason, the interesting thing about the Ethan Burke conversation is that, and I don't mean to like steal potential names that we can talk about, but Jamon Tapp's name pops up. I'm kind of waiting to see what role a guy like Justice Finkley has. I see Money Out to Anus mentions his name in the chat. That huge chunk of guys, they signed that big defensive end edge class just a year ago. And none of those guys completely carved out roles in year 1, I think, which was a bit of a disappointment, because 12 months ago, if we were doing this show, there would have been some real hope and expectation that one of Ethan Burke, Justice Finkley, Jamon Tapp, that one of those guys emerges as someone that can at least, play 30% of the snaps, 25% of the snaps, something like that. It didn't happen. So we're all waiting to see that group and kind of see who emerges first from it. But by the same token, they signed another really big edge class in December and then in January, or I guess February. And, you've got guys from that group that will be coming in. And, what does a Colton Vasek look like? You tend to think he could use a year in the weight room maybe before he's ready, but it's all hands on deck right now. They don't have the veteran guy that they've kind of used to hold down this position for the first 2 years under Sarkisian. They're finally, unless they find somebody in the portal, it's got to be one of these guys, ready or not.
Yeah, and listen, I like the pick of Ethan Burke. I mean, I was a big fan of his coming out of high school, like Anwar and multi-sports. This guy had a college scholarship, I think it was to Maryland, to play lacrosse, dude. That's a really good athlete in himself. Mm-hmm. Then transitions to football and is tremendous upside. But I said it before, man. I think he's going to have a hard time holding off Colton Vasek in time. I mean, if it's this year, I don't know. But every time I hear the name Ethan Burke, I think, okay, well, I'm going to be watching Colton Vasek too. So I get it. He's a true freshman, early enrollee catch. He said, like every true freshman, he could probably use another year, maybe even 2 in the weight room. But Texas doesn't really have that luxury, man. And one thing about Vasek, man, he's going to bust his tail. He's going to give maximum effort. He's going to work, work as hard as he can to put himself in a position to be ready as early as possible. He's got the bloodlines. He's a tremendous player. I mean, there's nothing to dislike about Colton Vasek. So is he going to be ready to play this spring? Is he going to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, this spring? Might be a little tough, man, his first action. But I think we'll see him make some flash plays and maybe have some days this spring where people are talking about Colton Vasek setting himself up maybe to get a closer look in fall camp. So I like to pick Ethan Burke. I think Colton Vasek's a name you can throw into that bunch as well. But listen, there's a lot of true freshmen. We can go down the list, and maybe we will. I'll see how which direction you want to take this. But there's probably easily a half dozen true freshmen that could be at or near the top of this list of guys that I want to watch closely this spring.
My guy that I'm going to go to in a second is a true freshman, but I'll let Eric Torres jump in here because he's got a guy too that I think a lot of people – this would probably be Alex's pick if we were doing this and kind of going around the room. Big hole at right guard. Eric Torres referencing the Cole Hudson injury situation. Assuming that DJ Campbell's fit and ready to go, he is kind of on the clock. It's a big spring for him. He gets to put a flag down and say, this is how good I am, Jason. And if he can maintain a high level of play or a higher level of play than what the position received a year ago, when really, Cole Hudson playing injured was just okay. And kind of so was DJ Campbell. So those guys are true freshmen. I think it's a lot to ask for more than okay as a starter, like in year one. But Onwar and I talked about this yesterday, Jason. Everybody's watching all of those offensive linemen that came in a year ago. Kelvin Banks is his own thing. That whole collection of guys now going into year two, they're all going to want to make an impression and position themselves as players, absolute players for the future, write it in ink for a program that's collecting a lot of young offensive linemen.
It's interesting because they're all still really young, right? Let's be honest. I mean, redshirt freshmen. I mean, asking a redshirt freshman offensive lineman to come in and have a big impact is asking a lot. But you know what? They better start. They're going to get passed up. That's just kind of the situation you're in when you come in a 7-man offensive line class with a lot of elite talent. I mean, Kelvin Banks is such a freak anomaly to have a true freshman left tackle start the way he did. But, it's almost, I don't say it's unfair because these guys knew what they were getting into, but it's almost a little unfair to expect Malik Agbo to be ready this year or, Nato Umojalo or whatever, butcher his last name again, to be ready this year. I mean, traditionally, historically, you're like, okay, give those dudes till like their third year in the program before they're even ready to contribute. But with Texas's needed offensive line, the numbers they've recruited at offensive line, the talent they've recruited at offensive line, these players don't have that 3-year luxury. So, I mean, listen, I get it. Cole Hudson didn't always put up the best grades, maybe week to week, but the dude was a true freshman. I think, did he start every game? Yeah. I mean, he started every freaking game. And Kyle Flood's no dummy. I mean, Kyle Flood sings his praises. Sark sings his praises. He played injured. So, I mean, listen, you're not going to ever hear me bash on a true freshman offensive lineman who starts. Listen, DJ Campbell, I can remember when he listen, tremendous upside. I get it. But the game when Hudson got hurt for a series and DJ comes out and Quinn Ewers ends up cussing him out because he lets a guy have a free run at Quinn. So, your freshman offensive line, you're going to have mistakes, but everybody's excited about DJ Campbell. They should be. Fantastic player. I think he was a 5-star on Rivals, if I remember correctly. I can't even remember because he moved up and down various rankings, but I think he wound up being a 5-star. So 5-star recruit, everybody's going to be excited about that, but I'm not throwing in the towel on Cole Hudson by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it's his availability, Jason, in the spring with that hernia situation that was the injury, right?
It was a shoulder. I'd have to go back and look at my messages. But, in talking to someone close to him, he could have had that cleaned up right after the regular season, obviously even during the season, but certainly during the regular season. But he decided to wait until after the bowl game so that he could get those extra practices, those extra snaps. I'd have to go back and read through all my messages. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do that as I talk. But, he played 800 snaps, 13 starts at 800 snaps. This is going back into mid-January. This person I was talking to wasn't even 100% convinced he was going to miss spring. I think we'd be surprised to see him out there. But, yes, he is, assuming he misses spring, Catch. You're right. His availability may set Cole Hudson back, but he got so much experience last year, including the bowl game practices, it almost makes up for missing spring. So, I still think Cole Hudson has a really strong chance to reclaim that starting job whenever he is back healthy.
Onwar, you're going to get a laugh at this super chat. What's up, fellas? I'll be watching Jonathan Brooks. Will he be able to step up and be the lead back? I hope what we saw in the bowl game was a fluke. Chris, you know what I would tell you? There's a video on this channel, yesterday's Monday Overreaction show. We did like 30 minutes on Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, we did. And ended up getting, I think, a little misquoted on Twitter about it when it was all said and done. So
a little bit.
It was a little bit like, wait a second, but that's not what we said. And no, but so anyway, it's just,
short story, make it quick. Anwar and I, like, if you pushed us to it, we both think he's got a potential to be 1,000-yard back this season. So the conversation started about the difference between a historic back in Bijan Robinson and then his backup Roshan and kind of what you have. And it weirdly turned into a maybe catching and Anwar don't like Jonathan Brooks at all. And that was not the message of the day. Go check out that video. But I wanted to give you your shout out. We're all watching Jonathan Brooks and all of those running backs. But we did seriously. Like, there's a whole video. And I'm going to write about it, my 10 thoughts from the weekend, this week as well, when we get to the weekend. Let me see. Let me just take that down there. Okay, so here's my guy. Hold on.
That's Chris again.
Here. We'll let Just a Dude get in there with his as well. Leona LaFowl, sleeper freshman impact. A lot of people like him. So, maybe you're not exactly wrong about that. It'll be interesting to see. Okay. All right. I'm clear of the screen now. Here's my guy. And Anwar, we talked about him yesterday.
Okay.
He's a true freshman. It would be easy to go with Arch. It would be really easy to go with Anthony Hill. We're burying some of the leads with some of the freshman players that we're going to watch. Jonte Cook, though, is a guy that I cannot shake one of your sources suggesting that he's been better than advertised. Because by the end of the year, you had guys, our guys over at Rivals were thinking about him in the conversation with the best wide receivers in the country. And I think in the end, he finishes only a few spots, Jason, below the guy that went to USC. I'm just forgetting the name for a second. The speedster guy that's like faster than everybody in the 100 and 200. I've said his name 1,000 times, and I'm just drawing blank. Too many 2025 kids in my head.
Yeah, I've already turned the page on, especially guys that didn't come to Texas last year. I'm like, oh.
But Jonte Cook, he's top 25 player in the country. So when they do that, when they rank a
branch is the branch.
Yeah, thank you.
I had to look it up.
Blake and Sam were all over it.
We should have just put the keyboard away and let someone fill in the blanks in the chat for us like they did.
He never was interested in Texas, so out of sight, out
They're
of mind.
faster than Google. But if you're rated as a top 25 type guy in the country by Rivals, that's essentially Rivals saying we think this guy's got a chance to be a first-round draft pick. Those aren't my words. That's how they try to frame. That's why they want 32 5-stars, because they want it to reflect the same number of guys. So there's a part of me that will talk about Isaiah Nayor. We'll talk about A.D. Mitchell, Jordan, and Xavier. It's possible, and it might not all come to a head in the next month or 6 weeks or 6 months, but it's possible that Jonte Cook is better than all of these dudes. That A.D. Mitchell wasn't a 5-star in recruiting. Isaiah Nayor wasn't a 5-star and isn't automatically thought of as a guy that's going to be a first or second day pick. Jonte Cook, as a talent, may be more talented than everybody, with maybe the exception of Xavier Worthy, because Worthy's speed is just on maybe a slightly different level than Jonte Cook. But Jonte Cook may be a better player, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to any of these guys. I'm pretty much the captain of the Xavier Worthy fan club. I have stood up for him more times than I can count. However, when I hear Anwar, when I hear yours say better than advertised, they must think he is incredible. And I'm fascinated to see what that looks like, because Anwar, as we talked about yesterday, this was a wide receiver position that at the end of the year rolled out Casey Kane in the bowl game, and Casey actually had probably his best overall game of his career in that moment. But that position had been a major need. It's why they go out and get A.D. Mitchell. And I'm just fascinated to see how much Jonte Cook, how much pressure he can apply on everybody in that wide receiver room if he's ready to go, ready to contribute, and his talent takes off in a way that Xavier Worthy's did when he showed up very first day of practice running with the ones in August of 2021. I'm dying to see if Jonte Cook is that dude, because man, it would make this. You tell me right now, oh yeah, the 5-star guy shows up and looks like a future 2026 NFL draft pick, I feel a lot better about this offense, because then it makes it's the kind of cherry on top of the sundae that could make a big difference.
I mean, a huge difference as far as playmakers concerned. And, Jason, you weren't here, but, we also talked about how crowded that receiving room is really getting, for the guys who are the top 5, and then who's on the outside looking in. And Jonte's emergence really starts squeezing some of the guys who are probably like borderline. But, when I think about Jonte and his potential readiness, I was thinking I had to pull up something. And one of the things I had in our war room about a month or so ago, Jonte is trained by a guy by the name of Margin Hooks, who I know Jason is extremely familiar with, but he's kind of known as the receiver kind of guru here. And let me just give you a small list of guys that have been trained by him. It's been Isaiah Nair, but it's also been Evan Stewart, Marvin Mims. I'm just going to go through the notable guys. Marnie Winfield, as well, JoJo Earl. Previously it's been Charleston Rambo and Little Jordan Humphrey. Some 2024 guys that are trained by Hook are Micah Hudson, Josiah Martin, Parker Livingston, James Madison, Ernest Campbell. That seems to be the stable where guys are coming out of that are elite receivers in the state of Texas. Maybe not all of them, but it seems to be your elite guys, and Evan Stewart and what he's able to do. So if Jonte is Evan Stewart, in 2023, that's not a bad start. Like that's a hell of a start to a college career for him. So it'll be, like you said, we'll see what happens as they start going a little bit further along in the spring, summer. Guys got to stay healthy, and of course going into training camp. But he is a guy that is absolutely you keep an eye on, just because if he's able to push the issue as far as being within that top stratosphere of receivers that are here, the guys that once you get past the A.D. Mitchells and Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington, if he's somewhere in that 4-5 range or whatever, then he's a guy that, Sark's not, like we talked about it yesterday, Sark is not like Tom Herman where you're going to have like 10 receivers. He's going to have his top guys, and that'll be it. It'll be interesting to see if Jonte can emerge when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm more to piggyback a little bit off of what you said and catch too. He's not going to come in and be running with the ones like Xavier Worthy did, because it's a deep wide receiver room suddenly, an experienced wide receiver room. If he would have come in a couple years ago like Worthy did, he probably would be. Secondly, he's very skilled. Okay. I mean, just got natural talent, but as you said, Omar, he comes in very highly trained. I mean, this guy's put in a lot of work with Coach Hooks. His footwork, his ball skills, everything are top notch. The thing that I love about Jonte, though, that I think is going to allow him to be successful early, he's going to walk in, and I'm telling you, man, he's going to think he's the best receiver on the field from the first practice. He doesn't give a damn about Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell. He knows those dudes are good, but Jonte's going to think he's the best. And most of your good receivers have that edge to him, right? I mean, he's a guy that shows up at camps and calls out the best DB, and he'll mother effer them, get your ass over here. Line up in front of me. I'm going to show you. I'm going to put you in your place. I've been at 7-on-7 deals where he's calling out his own quarterback. He's got a good quarterback at DeSoto, or had a good quarterback, and his team's having to hold him back because he's not getting the ball enough. He's going to go after his own quarterback. And I just say that he's ultra competitive, ultra confident. He's not going to take a back seat. He's not going to come in like a lot of freshmen do and kind of take a back seat and, okay, I'll bide my time and maybe try to gradually work my way up. No, man, Jonte's going to want to come. He's going to cut the line at reps. He's that kind of guy. So if he doesn't succeed, it won't be for lack of confidence or lack of trying or lack of work put in. Now, like we said, it's a deep receiver room. We'll see. It's going to be tough to crack that top of that rotation with some of those experienced guys. But, I mean, Jonte's got the complete package in terms of skill set, work ethic. He's been training on his craft for years. And, I mean, I'm telling you, man, this dude is as competitive and as confident as any receiver I've seen in a long time. Now, sometimes you got to rein that in a little bit, right? We've seen that be a problem with certain receivers, obviously at Texas and the NFL, and, receivers sometimes get reputations as being divas or whatever. Now, I'm not saying Jonte is a diva by any means, but he's one of those guys, if he's not getting the ball and if he's not involved, he's going to let you know that he's not happy about it. So it's kind of a balancing act, but mentally you've got to have that edge to be successful. And Jonte Cook has that edge as much as any receiver I've covered in a long time.
Jason, I did mention Evan Stewart. Is there a fair comparison between the two guys?
Yeah, Evan's got a little bit of that too, but I think in terms of just purely between the lines on the field, get me that ball, I think Jonte's even got more of an edge than Evan Stewart is. I mean, they're pretty similar. They run in the same circles. I mean, those dudes are friends. But I think Jonte's
skill set wise.
Pretty similar. I would probably say Evan's just a smidge better from just a pure athleticism standpoint.
He's pretty spectacular as a
but I mean, Jonte's not far behind. Jonte can do some incredible things, and but yeah, I mean, if you're talking purely from a physical skill set, I'd probably put Evan Stewart a notch above, but I think Jonte maybe makes up for it in, like I said, just kind of competitiveness, work ethic. He's a guy that's going to, traditionally, and I hope it carries over to UT, but he's going to show up early to practice and practice late, and he's going to be out there working one-on-one, whatever he can do to fine-tune his craft. So very comparable players, but, I'd probably say, to answer your question directly, Evans, like Ketch, just a rare athlete in terms of pure natural athleticism.
I think Jonte's a better football player, and I think Evan's a slightly better athlete.
I think that's a good description. That's a good way to put it, probably. Yeah.
And in the end, you've got two guys that are both, I think, Sunday football players. Gregory Campbell, real quick, in the super chat. This is interesting. It's a good super. Gregory, it brings us into the quarterback discussion a little bit. It's a damn good question. What do we think the snap breakdown will be for Murphy and Manning in the spring game? He also asks and wonders if we think Baxter will be the number 2 back by the time the season starts. Let's answer the Baxter question first. It's kind of an easy yes or no one. For me, it's yes. I think C.J. Baxter is going to be the number 2 back. By the time the season starts, maybe not, but by week 3, for me, yes.
Yeah, if the question is by the time the season starts, I'm saying no. I mean, coaches just traditionally bring along these guys slowly, including running backs. They're going to lean on the experienced guys, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Blue to a lesser degree. I don't think he's number 2 by the time the season starts. By the time the season ends, yes, I do think he's number 2.
Wait, so who do you think is number 2? Who do you think is number 2? I'm curious.
Technically, I think it'll be Blue or Bijan Robinson. I mean, I know Keelan's kind of a role player, but we saw in the bowl game he have a little bit bigger role. So I just think it'll be one of those guys who've been in the program for a year or 2.
Wow. I'm going to say yes to Baxter.
Okay.
So we got 2 yeses and 1 no.
Well,
no by the
season. No by the time the season. You know what I think is going to happen? I think we're all right. I think they will, if they even release a first depth chart.
Oh, there's that. Yes.
They'll take care of the upperclassmen in week 1, right? So they won't put but I think in the back of their minds, they're thinking to themselves, he's really our number 2 guy. And that
I'm not sure he's not number 1 at some point during the season.
I mean, at some point, if he's again a guy that's a special player, and there are reasons to believe that he could be that kind of a guy. Can't hold that back forever. And why would you want to if you're Sarkisian? So I think everything's on the table at the running back position. That does not mean we don't like Jonathan Brooks.
No, but what it will mean is people think we don't like Jaden Blue. So just so you know that
I'm the guy that called out before the ball game that Blue was my like dark horse player to watch in that game, and he didn't get a snap. I feel like I need to apologize to Blue. I wonder if like Sarkisian saw that and was like, "Screw Ketchum." Sorry, Blue. Because he was a guy they were singing the praises of going into that game when Sarkisian spoke with the media, and then So all right, this quarterback thing, we talked about it a lot yesterday on War. Murphy and Manning, and
we didn't talk about the quarterback yesterday. That was actually off limits yesterday.
You're right. Maybe we just do so many. When did we do the?
That was like last week sometime.
When we talked
quarterback
about
was actually off topic.
Okay. Well, it's on topic now.
Yeah.
Let's do it with like a pie chart. Well, here's the thing. Let's start off with a baby question. Do we all agree, I think, that Arch Manning in the spring game won't be taking reps with the ones, right?
Yes, I agree.
I do agree with you.
Okay. Will Malik get reps in the spring game as the number 2 quarterback? You know, because last year they were rotating because there was a pure competition, but now you've got a returning quarterback coming back. Will Murphy get some first-team reps?
Oh, first-team reps. I think he'll if you're asking me, will he get a series with the first team or something like that? Yeah, I think he probably will. They usually kind of mix and match to some degree. But yeah.
He better.
Wait,
play that game if you want to. You run with the twos, and I'm letting you know that you definitely ain't playing at all this year. Like you better throw that guy a bone in the spring.
Gregory, here's what I think we'll see. I think in the first half hour of the spring game, each guy will maybe get a series, or maybe Quinn Ewers and Malik Murphy alternate between the first and the second team, and they mix and match a little bit. Maybe Arch gets an early series, and then they're going to hold Arch back. And later in the spring game, in the second half of things, third and kind of fourth quarter, or however they do that, you will see less of Ewers in the ones, and you'll start to see the scout team and the twos and the threes take over. And then I think that's where Manning's going to get the majority of his work. My guess is that it probably is somewhere along the lines of 40 and 40% each for Ewers and Murphy. And then Manning will get 20% in the last half hour of proceedings. Very just basically raw guesstimates. But I think it would probably work out like that from a snap breakdown percentage. Anybody agree, disagree?
That's exactly what I would probably put it at. I think it'll be 40-40. I mean, Quinn getting more first team, obviously Malik second team, but I think Malik probably gets some first team. So 40-40 in terms of actual snaps taken, and about 20 for Arch, mostly with maybe a little bit of second string, but some third string scout teams. Now, let's fast forward to the fall. Maybe those percentages are different, but in the spring game, that's exactly about what I would guess, I think.
Anwar, is that making Malik happy?
What about Charles Wright? Put some respect on his name.
No, Charles. What is
He'll
Charles?
get some snaps. I mean, Charles will get some
snaps.
It may be 38, 24.
Okay. All right.
Like you're right. Charles Wright will play,
yes.
But not any of those three quarterbacks is going to lose what would be viewed, I think, as an important rep at the expense of Charles Wright. Look, and I don't mean that to be like a negative against Charles. Charles knew what he was signing up for when he was a member of the Tech. He knew that he was a lightly recruited guy that didn't have a lot of offers, hometown kid, legit major college prospect, but he knew that he was
committed
going to have
Iowa State, wasn't he? Yeah, he's committed to Iowa State before Texas. Also.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But he knew that he would be dealing with guys like Quinn Ewers, not specifically those guys, but that it was always, I think, going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for Charles. And it remains that. Like
Darwin's comment thing in the comment made me laugh. That's why I'm sorry that it wasn't able to hold that in. But his comment about Charles Wright was so foul, Darwin.
Well, and look, Darwin may end up being right when it's all said and done. I mean, we don't think any of the three quarterbacks. Well, look, Anwar wrote a column on Sunday where if this thing were to line up perfectly from maybe a Steve Sarkisian crazy hatched idea, it's like Ewers balls out this year and then goes pro, and then Malik Murphy goes and starts for a season and goes pro, and then you bring in Manning and he plays and he goes pro. All three guys start, all three guys go pro. Yay! That is like pie in the sky stuff. But in reality, you're probably going to keep two of these guys, and one of these guys got to be the odd man out unless you're able to thread a needle through a very small target. And Charles Wright has to fit into this group of guys that we don't even necessarily all believe will make it over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 seasons. So it's just, I
don't know that Charles Wright's going to leave. I mean, listen, I want to defend the kid a little bit.
He could stay.
People are shitting on him. Well, this is a guy who grew up in Austin, a UT fan. He came to Texas knowing what he was getting into. I mean, listen, he's confident. I've talked to him when he was a recruit, and he's like, hey, I'm coming in to compete with Hudson Card for that job. I'm not conceding anything, but the dude does nothing but handles himself with class. He's great in the locker room. He's great on recruiting visits. He's at the junior day talking to recruits. I don't understand the need to shit on a kid like that.
I think they may need him in a few years from now when some of the dust clears, when Ewers is gone, when potentially one of the two of Manning and or Murphy lose a battle and maybe look to leave. Suddenly you're left with one guy, and you can't have one guy. So I think the real value of Charles Wright moving forward, as he ages and gets older, he has a chance to be kind of a Matt Nordgren.
He's a veteran presence if you need him, and who knows, maybe he catches lightning in a bottle if he plays. But he may never start a game. I don't know, but the dude has handled himself with complete class. He grew up a Texas fan. He supports Texas in every corner possible, including junior days and hosting recruits. And people are shitting on the guy because God forbid he can't possibly beat out Malik Murphy, Arch Manning, or Quinn Ewers. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. But I think that, I think he stays. Because if it were me, and when he was recruited, I mentioned it. It is a big deal that a kid from Austin High, a quarterback at Austin High, got a legit scholarship at Texas, and it wasn't like his old man went to Texas, and so he's a legacy, and he's a preferred walk-on type. No, he's a legit scholarship guy who, as you said, Jason, peeled off from a Big 12 offer.
Arkansas had offered him. He was committed to Iowa State, and it wasn't like he didn't have other options,
I think that kid, because I think he'd be making a huge mistake to transfer. He's a little bit like a local celebrity. I can't imagine how badass it would be to be a quarterback at UT that played at Austin High. You literally can't walk around campus. You can't walk 5 minutes off campus without somebody knowing, it's got to be great with the girls, if I'm being completely honest. It's a great combo. Austin High / UT quarterback. His life has to be good, in my opinion.
I mean, he's the guy that when he gets in the spring game, the fans should give him a freaking standing ovation. I mean, for just being so freaking loyal to this program. So, if he never starts a game, whatever, man. The guy, I don't know what he's majoring in, but knowing Charles is probably business or something.
I'm telling you,
engineering. He's going to set himself up very well. Yeah, he's going to set himself very well set himself up in life very well just by finishing his degree at Texas.
And who knows if we'll all be around in 3 years. He'll probably be, I think, a backup quarterback, an older. He's exactly what a fourth year version of Charles Wright is probably exactly what they need right now.
Kind of like Trey Owens, catch, not to cut you off, but the guy they have committed in this class. I mean, no, he's not the sexiest quarterback, but this is a guy that's going to come in and compete and just do things right on and off the field. I mean, to me, there's something to be celebrated for that. I've said Trey Owens to me was the perfect quarterback take for Texas in this class, because following Arch Manning, you're not going to go get another 5-star, but this is a guy who wants to be a Longhorn. He's got a good, decent skill set. In a pinch, he can you can put him out there and feel confident that he can win a game or two for you. So, man, we're getting way down a rabbit hole here, but you need those kind of guys on your team and on your roster sometimes.
And name me another Texas Longhorn football YouTube channel that spent the last 5 minutes talking about Charles Wright. Like, put some respect on our damn name is what I've got to say.
Well, and I think to Darwin's credit, Anwar, like, I think he, and I'm looking at the chat, he was saying like maybe he'd actually go to SMU and like be a starter a la Shane Buechele or something like that. It's
maybe Buechele was a guy who started games at Texas and then lost his job. Charles, that's a little bit higher risk than for Charles to make that kind of move.
If Charles went into the portal just because it's the portal era and he wanted to play, where do you think his likely options would reside?
I think he'd have options, man. But if he truly wanted to guarantee himself playing time and not transfer to a program where he's then second or third string again, I don't know. I'd have to look at depth charts. But, a Tulane, maybe a Houston type program. Again, he'd have to find somewhere with
something like that, maybe.
Yeah. I
think they're climbing. Maybe UTSA. Something like that,
Yeah, I think he could contribute at a place like that, certainly. And who knows? Like I said, dude, you don't know shit. He may go there and be Major Applewhite and set the world on fire and play really well. I mean, but I don't know that he'll ever get that.
If it's the luck that this program has had in the last 12 years, that's exactly what will happen, Jason. Hey, let's all do one more player, and then I wanted to slightly change directions before we wrap up the discussion. I wanted to have a little Bijan discussion. So quickly, we all named one player, and we've gone 48 minutes in the process. Let's all do another one. Onward. Give me another guy. One more guy that you take some ownership of going into the spring.
Any side of the ball. So we've talked about, I've done Ethan, I've done Tap. You know what? Just for shits and giggles, and just because he's willing to put it out there, Mr. Sorrell. I look. This Daddy comes on here pretty damn faithfully.
Barry's not even on the chat this week. What's up?
I know, but Barry is not here. He's probably around, but Daddy comes on and he tells us about Barron's going to have 10 sacks this season. Like,
he told us.
He's putting
nice
it out
knowing
there.
You guys.
There he is. He's here.
I knew it.
I'm still laughing at that comment from a couple of weeks ago. It's the highlight of the year so far.
Listen,
how did I not get to know Barry when Barron was a recruit? I feel like I missed out on a couple good years of conversations with Barry when Barron was a recruit.
I mean, look. I mean, there's a curiosity standpoint, like all jokes aside, with Barron Sorrell for me. Not just because his dad says it with his chest, and which he should. But we did see him flash. Like, we did see games where you felt his presence. You were like, oh, there's that dude. Like, he's here. Like,
Alabama.
Alabama. Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to see, as we've talked about some of these other guys on the defensive line, I want to overlook him. I want to see if he lives up to the hype that his dad has put out there, but I also want to see if it lives up to the hype as far as the snippets, the flashy moments that he's had. He's a guy that I'll be looking to. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of guys who are young that are going to have to contribute on a defensive line. He'll be another guy if you ask me, so I guess I'll be on the defensive side looking, but of course they make us stand on the track and they put the defense 200 yards away. So hopefully through my binoculars, I might be able to see something. It used to be, Catch, they told us we had to stand on the trap because of COVID reasons, and we used to be able to watch it on the sidelines. And then, like anything, there's no more COVID stuff, and now like, oh, you just got to stand here from now on.
Onward, I dare you to show up to practice with an actual telescope.
You know what? Just for that, I'm going to get on Amazon right now, and I'm going to see what kind of I will set my telescope up, and I'll be looking down.
My son one years ago. I don't think he probably still has it, but I'll go rummage through his closet, dude. If he has, I'll bring it to you.
I promise you. Yeah. So, Catch, we have to stand on the sidewalk and can't go along the sidelines for no one. There's been no reason why we can't go back to our normal spot other than once things get taken away from the media to never get given back.
Yeah. It's like a marriage going through a divorce.
Yeah.
If you leave the house, you've left the house.
That makes me want to make a very what do I call it? Not X-rated, but close to X-rated joke about marriage. How do you make certain things go away when you're dating a girl? Marry her. I'll let you figure out what the certain things are.
So, all right, here we go. I'm gonna try to bring us back. Onward, you could make a case. We're doing a top 5 most important / valuable Longhorns on the roster. That Sorrell is in that group, because if he got a cold or a fever or sprained a toe or something and just had to miss a game, there's nobody right now behind him. I mean, he's the guy. We're talking about needing an edge guy to develop. Boy, the pressure would really be on at that point. If let's say it's a bowl game and it was like he's declaring early for the draft, right? If they went into a bowl game and it was like Finkley and Burke were leading up the pass rush right now, like I have no idea what that means. At least I know with Sorrell, you're going to get a guy that I think is going to be close to double-digit sacks at a minimum. He kind of is going through the Charles Omenihu progression, where starts out playing a little bit, and then it's like 5.5 sacks, and then it takes a step, and it's like 9 or 10. I think that's my expectation for Sorrell this season. And if he does it, he has a chance, I think, to be a guy that, like he said, like his dad said, contract year, like 9 or 10 sacks would go a long way, I think, towards turning him into a guy NFL guys would be very attracted to. Jason, you got another guy?
Yeah, again, I mean, I'm going to
don't steal mine. I've got one. Don't steal mine.
It's 2, and I'm only going to use 1, but it's easy to. I'm going to stay away from the true freshmen. It's easy to go with Hill or some of these true freshmen. I think I talked about him a couple weeks ago. I mean, I think Terence Brooks is a guy.
You took him. You got guys you can choose from, and you took my guy.
Well, I mean, again, I talked about him a few weeks ago, and I think maybe I stole him from you a few weeks ago. We were doing something.
We did have a mini Terence Brooks convo.
Yeah. The guy played really well when he was kind of forced into action, if you will, late in the season. And yes, we did talk. Now it's coming back to me. Catch, you and I talk like people forget how highly rated of a recruit this guy is. I mean, This is a guy that should be a legitimate playmaker for Texas in that secondary. We saw glimpses of it last year when he, was forced into quite a bit of action late in the year. I want to see if he can take that next step, continue that level of play consistently, but maybe even take it up a notch and lock down one of those starting cornerback spots. And I mean, this guy has all conference potential. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think Terence Brooks has that kind of talent. So I want to see if he can start to take that next step this spring.
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. So I'm trying to think. Like I was convinced. I had Terence Brooks kind of secured in a corner, and that was going to be my guy. I think he may be Onward, the best player on this team that nobody ever talks about. That by the end of this next season, he's a top 5 player on the team. But going into the season,
Oh,
pretty
shit.
good last year. And
you know what I'm hearing right now? When we do our player auction, Ketch and I are going to be getting into a bidding war over
$800. No, you and I will definitely be fighting for Terence Brooks
mouse game going on with that one. Yeah.
Onward, any final thoughts on Brooks before we move on?
No. I think you guys have kind of, really, covered it because, like you said, there's a lot of, a lot of good, DBs, cornerbacks that they have, but like you said, Brooks definitely has that potential to do something, something special. He would be, you guys have, it's a good choice between the both of you guys. I would be honest with you, but Ketch, you still need to come up with one. So you can't just get off.
I have
easy.
one, and I have the most random name that if we did a player draft, he might be one of like the last 10 or 15 guys taken in the program. This was completely out of right field. However, Jatavion Sanders I think we all believe is only going to be around for another year. That if he has the season that we think he can, if he has a season like he had last year, this year, I think he's an NFL guy that goes off to the pros. And then I start looking at that tight end position, there's not really even a mini Jatavion Sanders in the tight end group right now, except there's one guy that I keep telling myself, this guy's got athleticism, this guy's got potential. Can he ever put it together? Juan Davis. Can Juan Davis come out of nowhere? We know that the top two tight ends are Jatavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm. But Gunnar Helm's a certain kind of tight end that I don't think his skill set overlaps necessarily. What I think if Juan Davis can ever put it together, I think Juan Davis could be an excellent 1-2 punch with Gunnar Helm in a year from now. But God, he's got to put it together. He's got to be healthy. He's got to be on the field. I think he's running out of chances because you're going to see eventually that tight end room be full of the guy who's recruiting them. If we're being completely honest. Like, I think that we're just in a situation where Juan Davis, this might be his last chance to like viably put himself into a position where Jeff Banks thinks of him as a guy for the future. And if he's not, he's almost certainly going to be a guy that ends up in the portal. Just the way I feel about it. Whether or not he goes there voluntarily or the coaches say, hey, it's the best thing for you. You might need to go that way if you ever want to play football. So I still own a little bit of baby stock in Juan Davis. I still believe in his upside. I'd love to, at the end of the spring, he be a guy that coaches are just feeling a little bit confident about, because when you go into 2024 next year, I guess they'll just play with fewer tight ends, because I don't have a lot of expectations for the guys they took in this past class. No offense to any of those guys. I don't know that I think any of those guys are ever going to be impact players. Bijan Robinson was a guy that you think, oh, they get a guy like him, the offense they're currently running could stay the same. There's a real chance that after Jatavion leaves, this becomes an offense that you don't see as much 12 personnel. You don't see the two tight end sets as much, because the depth and the talent will be like it was at Alabama, where they have 4 wide receivers that are all NFL players, all can't get on the field. So Juan Davis, for me, has a chance to be a poor man's Jatavion Sanders if he can put it all together, or he could just be in the portal. So I'm taking that guy out of right field. And, I don't have high expectations that it's actually going to happen, but it would be, I think, a really good development for Texas if that was a guy that started to find himself a little bit and not be a guy that's been just kind of lost in the crowd.
Really good athlete with tremendous upside, but he's got 1 catch and 1 rush in 2 years in Austin. I get it. I understand why you like him, but it's kind of now or never for Juan Davis. You're right.
Yeah, he would probably catch like bubble guys if we did a video, as far as like, hey, what happens, because it's interesting because what was it, about a year or so ago, he was bragging about the 3 guys that he had. Sarkisian was, and Juan Davis was amongst the guys that he felt like he was stacked. And then Juan Davis just kind of fades off a little bit. So, it'd be interesting if he can be the guy that's talked about like he once was.
He's a redshirt sophomore, so this is his 3rd year. And, at some point, the thing that he's got going for him, no offense to what Jeff Banks did last year in recruiting, I just don't have super high expectations for Spencer Shannon and Will Randall. And quite frankly, they're different kinds of athletes and football prospects than Juan Davis would be. I can imagine a role where both of those 2 guys play. I just don't know that it's a role. It's a blocking guy. It's kind of the Gunnar Helm role, if you will. So it's not like he's got to worry about Malik Muhammad coming from behind and just overlapping him on the depth chart. But Onward, you're 100% right. If we did a video or an article, which we wouldn't do because it would be real chicken shit to do, but if you did a 5 or 10 guys that are most likely to end up in the portal, he'd certainly be a guy that you would think about at this point because he hasn't found his niche. I'd love that guy to come out of nowhere and figure it out, because I think there's something inside of that guy. He just hasn't found it yet. Anyway, let's change directions a little bit. Mel Kiper came out with his latest mock draft. It's got Bijan Robinson at number 27 to Buffalo. I just want everybody, as we close the show and get ready to go into parting shots, where does everybody, are we buying? Because I think Bijan Robinson can be a Hall of Fame NFL player. I think he's the kind of guy that for 7 or 8 seasons could be absolutely elite if he can stay healthy. And at the end of his career, we're going to go, wow, that guy had a borderline Hall of Fame career. I just can't imagine that guy making it to 27 on WAR. I know the running back thing. I know what NFL people have convinced themselves about running backs. But I will say this, if that dude went number 27 to Buffalo, watch out for the Bills.
Jeez, that would be sick. That would be unfair. Now, I think at the end of the day, Catch, I think somebody's going to fall in love with Bijan in the pre-draft process. I think he's got too much personality, too much charisma. Sarkisian is going to say amazing things about him. Locker room guy, captain, team leader, all those things. I think at the end of the day, a team will just say to themselves, we'll get him, we'll use him up for his rookie contract, and then we'll be done, at that point, and good luck to him. But I think that, yes, I know they don't value it, but I do believe that some team is going to fall in love with him and say, screw it, we've got to have him.
I can't wait to see how he tests. Okay. What's he going to run? We know he'll test well in the drills and catching and things. Character-wise, you're right on where he's going to blow those people away in terms of his personality. I posted this on our message board on Orangebloods yesterday. Bookies.com released their odds on where he would wind up. They actually have the highest odds on him landing at Tampa Bay. Buffalo was second, Catch, followed by the Eagles, and then the Cowboys and the Lions were tied for 5th. So, I don't know. The draft's unpredictable, but, running backs, it sucks for Bijan that running backs are devalued so much here recently because, just like you said, a generational talent, generational person, man, off the field. But to see him fall to Buffalo, not out of the question, dude, just the way running backs get drafted nowadays. So, I don't know. I'm fascinated to see. Is he fully testing this week at the Combine?
Sounds like
that
it.
I didn't. Oh, is he? Okay.
So
Blake said he was running the 40 and everything.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he runs. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think he's plenty quick and like short space quickness. But I mean, we've all seen him. Like, it's like, okay, he doesn't have that top end gear that maybe we thought he was, but man, whatever. He just gets it done regardless. So just watch the film. But I don't know, man. I'd hate to see him fall all the way to, was it 28th? You said Buffalo
27th.
27th. God, I'd hate to see him fall all the way to 27th, but I don't think it's out of the question at all.
Here's what I'm hoping, because I live in a world where the Cowboys just ain't ever going to be in the Super Bowl again. So I don't have to view this through the lens of a Cowboys fan, other than I don't want him to go to Philadelphia. I want Kansas City at 31. They're not going to do it because they took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that guy was a gigantic bust. So they're probably not going to go at running back with a first-round pick. But can you imagine that Kansas City offense with Bijan Robinson at tailback? I mean,
he's don't run the ball very much, though, too. So I don't know. But
he'd get it 15 to 18 times a game and then get it in the passing game. I think he'd have a chance to be one of those all-pro, all-purpose backs that doesn't get it 28 times. You know what I mean? Like, he's not Zeke Elliott. He's not You're not wondering by year 4 if he has his legs yet left. I'd love to see a team like Kansas City or Buffalo. I mean, or if this was a world where it was like best place for him to go, Philadelphia would be an awesome play. It'd be a great situation for him because it's a great team. The only good thing potentially about going late is that you get drafted by a really good team sometimes, and that last 5 or 6 picks, obviously, of the draft, if those teams haven't given their picks away. Boy, if Bijan Robinson slides to the Bills at 27, that could shift the tide in the AFC for a guy taking 20. I just think he's got that kind of NFL upside.
What teams does he not deserve to go to? Like, what did you say? Bijan's such a good guy. He doesn't deserve to get drafted by this franchise.
The Washington,
yeah,
maybe Tampa Bay without
Cleveland,
Brady.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay is the odds-on favorite according to this. The Bears, some of the Houston, the Bears, yeah. Good.
Green Bay, like, you know, there's a post Aaron Rodgers world out there where it's like, you really want to be playing in sub-freezing temperatures half the year? Like, from a guy from Arizona, maybe not.
I thought about that too, going to Philly and Buffalo. I'm like, dude, Bijan's from Arizona. He played college ball in Texas. And he to Buffalo or
he loves nice weather. You know what? Honestly, Baltimore would be a great place for him. Like Lamar Jackson with a real talented back behind him would be. They just never have been able. It seems like they can't ever keep their running backs healthy. That, you know, who's the guy at Ohio State that they drafted a couple of years ago?
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins was supposed to be a guy, and he just can't stay healthy. Onward, I'll end it on this. J.K. Dobbins is a perfect example of we all forget, and I try not to, but it's easy to do sometimes. The NFL is so violent. These dudes go from college to the NFL. It's like going to war. I mean, they're doing those inside drills with running backs, and these are like grown, angry, hungry men who just beat the hell on these guys. It's why I hope Bijan gets a fantastic situation, because those running backs earn their money, man. Parting shots. Onward, you got one to lead us off?
Yeah, I'll talk combine. Kind of speaking of, so there's 2 things I'm going to tell you about. So I'm going to tell you a combine story for a guy I absolutely kind of somewhat dislike. So I know that's kind of a lot of the different places, but so I was going to St. Elmo, so I was a backup Bucks rider, and kind of the thing that, you know, you're supposed to do as like the number 2 guy is like you're always supposed to. Everyone wants to do like a dinner somewhere, right? So I was getting a chance to cover the combine and went with, you know, a couple of Bucks riders and a couple other people. So there's this Dick by the name of Chris Harry, right? He covered the Bucks as well. And so we're at St. Elmo's, right? And so, and then my first time at St. Elmo's, right? It was the first time I had St. Elmo's. Mark Torres was talking about it. So St. Elmo's is known for having like an amazing shrimp cocktail, right? So they have the sauce there. And I go, hey, you know, what's that? You know, I've never been there, you know? And the guy goes, oh, it's amazing. You've got to try it because just take a huge slob of it. It tastes so good. It's delicious. I was like, oh, okay, cool. It was like horseradish, right? But it was like they was like saying almost spicier horseradish than the normal spicy would be. My eyes were watering. My nose was on fire. I could barely breathe. And he's over here laughing like he's Eddie Haskell, like he really like did something good. And I just like, you know, what a dick move to do. Like you really thought as a grown-ass man, like that thing was funny to do to somebody, like another person. And so I've always somewhat disliked him. And I still carry that memory. But I've gone back to St. Elmo's since then.
You follow him on Twitter.
I follow him. He covers the University of Florida. We used to work at the same newspaper.
But
you know, I didn't say, but I follow a lot of people I don't necessarily like.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, I mean,
two of them are on the screen.
No, Alex isn't here. I'm just joking. Just joking. Alex I love Alex. So I always, but outside of that, St. Elmo's is a fun place, fun time. And it's a really good thing. I can't wait for Chris to come to Austin because I will get my revenge this life or the other. The other thing too, just to remember as far as the scouting combine is concerned, guys, you're going to hear a lot of different talks. And I would always write this story every single year when I was in the NFL. You're going to hear a lot of talk this week about stock rising, stock falling, all these kind of things. Most of the teams I've covered all had their draft boards done before the combine. The majority of teams used the combine to get medicals and do interviews with guys. Like that's mostly the biggest takeaway for guys. But you're going to hear a lot of these experts are going to tell you, oh, this guy's his stock went up because of the combine. His stock went down. All these guys look at is the tape. They look at the tape. Go look at Joe Hayden's 40-yard dash time from the combine, and people would tell you, oh my gosh, they thought his stock was going to drop. People went and looked at the tape. He still was a first-round pick. So just don't get caught up in what these people said. The majority of people who write about it don't know what the hell they're talking about. When you start hearing about stuff before the season, you know, before while the season's going on and stock stuff, those are scouts who are regional, who have no influence, who will never be in the draft room. When the season's over, coaches, they all start analyzing the film. They come up with their stuff. The draft board's been set, and this is just confirmation bias for the most part. That's right here. So don't get caught up on that, but still enjoy the combine nonetheless.
Jason, what about you?
Yeah, a bit of breaking news 12 minutes ago. I'm ecstatic. Reiner Swanson, the tight end out of California, is going to be visiting Texas on March 25th. He's the one, I'm going to draw a blank. He's from, which beach is it? Laguna Beach. So I think I told y'all before, I need that dude to commit to Texas so I can find an excuse to go to Laguna Beach to cover him. But he's just tweeted that he's going to be visiting Texas on March 25th. He told me when I talked to him a couple weeks ago, he'd be visiting in March or June, probably both. I bet Texas gets him back for an official visit. But anyways, Reiner Swanson, one of Texas's top tight end targets, will be in Austin on March 25th. And then catch this weekend, Texas is going to have some recruits on campus this weekend. The dead period lives tonight. And then next weekend is the Under Armour camp up in Dallas. So I'll be out there to cover a bunch of guys, talk to a bunch of guys. And hopefully I got numbers just in the last 24 hours on, I think they're the top two guys on your LSR rankings that you just released, Lamont Rogers and Devin Sanchez, the DB out of North Florida. I didn't have numbers on either of those guys, and Rivals didn't either. But I secured numbers on both of them, so I'm going to hit them both up tonight. So little possible warranties. Hopefully we'll have updates on the top 2 players in the state for that 2025 cycle, probably in the War Room. I'll put some teasers out if I get a hold of them, but hopefully we'll have some pretty good underclassmen updates on big-time top national talents. I'll shoot for the War Room to have those updates. So recruiting is about to pick up big time, probably starting this weekend and continue all through March, and then just goes all the way through summer after that. So lots going on starting this weekend.
So speaking of breaking news, this is from 15 minutes ago, Jason. A competing network 24/7 did one of their things that they do where it's who will be the next quarterback to win the Heisman, and it's Caleb Williams, and it's Drake May, and Michael Penix is on there. Cade Klubnik is on there. And so is Quinn Ewers. And in the last 15 minutes, when asked the question of who will be the next quarterback to win the Heisman, none other than Xavier Worthy predicts that Quinn Ewers will be the next Heisman Trophy winner. And I only bring that up as a parting shot because of the way we ended the season with Quinn and Zay, and just that Xavier is publicly supporting his quarterback like that. I think it's a good thing for Texas. It's a good thing for that offense. It's a good thing for the players to kind of be down with each other. There had been some questions about this exact thing and are they still on the same page? 6 days away from the start of spring workouts, it would appear to me that Xavier Worthy is publicly supporting his quarterback and letting him know, if you still want to throw it to me 12 times a game, 15 times a game, I will take those targets. Anwar, any thoughts on Xavier's vouching for Quinn Ewers' Heisman candidacy 6 days before the spring?
Former roommate, so I mean that's kind of cool, and I think Xavier was the first to put out the Quinn haircuts, photos. So sure, why not? I mean, it would be more than awkward if you said Caleb Williams. So I mean, so it would be more than awkward. So he did say the right thing. By the way, putting Klubnik in there is also, by the way, an interesting choice. It's you guys who both are you and I are both huge Cade fans. He didn't really have the best season, last year. So it was kind of like So that's an interesting choice for me, by the way.
Latest team to an ACC championship. Yeah. Not a lot beyond that. Yes, and then I don't know what Georgia quarterback, whoever's next in line at Georgia, looks like a redheaded guy with a mustache, flowing locks. And I don't know. It looks like they got a Hawaii quarterback. I don't know. Or that's an Oregon. Maybe that's Bo Nix. Anyway, guys, we went like an hour 20 because that's what we do here with the Orangebloods Modcast. We just go on and on and on and on. Thanks to our sponsors. Put that graphic back up there, Blake. Our guys at DeadSoxy, take advantage. Use your promo code Orangebloods and buy you some socks that you're going to have for a long time, that you're going to love, that you're not going to want to take off, that you can get different patterns and create them and get the kind of steez that fits you. Promo code Orangebloods. Go to DeadSoxy.com. For myself, like the video if you haven't already done it. Hit that thumbs up button. Get notifications. Share this video on your social media. We would appreciate that significantly. For myself, Anwar, Jason, Blake, Alex, who's at the Combine, we will see you guys next week. You guys take care. The next Modcast will be the day after the first practice. It should be an absolute doozy.